Every cell in your body contains a message, 3.1 billion letters long, more information dense than anything humans have ever built, and no one knows who wrote it. In the last episode, we explored whether history points toward God, ancient temples, universal moral codes, archaeological evidence, but now we turn to something far older than any civilization, the molecule that makes life possible, DNA. In 1996, Bill Gates wrote something that stunned the tech world. DNA is like a computer program, but far, far more advanced than any software ever created. He was not making a religious argument. He was stating a fact about information density. The human genome contains 3.1 billion base pairs. That is roughly 775 megabytes of data, packed into a molecule so small it fits inside the nucleus of every cell. The information density of DNA is approximately 1,000 times greater than the best solid-state drives humans have ever manufactured. But here is what makes DNA different from a hard drive. A hard drive stores data. DNA stores instructions. It is not just information. It is a program. A set of precise commands that builds proteins, regulates timing, responds to the environment, and ultimately constructs an entire organism from a single cell. In every other case we know of, when you find specified, complex information, a language, a code, a program, it comes from a mind. That is the argument. DNA looks like it was written. The question is, was it? To answer that, you have to go back to the beginning, not the beginning of species. Darwin handled that, the beginning of life itself, and here the science gets honest about what it does not know. In 1953, the same year Watson and Crick discovered the structure of DNA, a graduate student named Stanley Miller ran an experiment that made headlines. He simulated Earth's early atmosphere in a flask: methane, ammonia, hydrogen, water, and electrical sparks. Within days, amino acids appeared, the building blocks of life, spontaneously, from nothing but chemistry. It felt like the origin of life was about to be solved, but 70 years later it has not been, because amino acids are not proteins, and proteins are not life. The gap between making amino acids in a flask and making a self-replicating cell is like the gap between finding iron ore and building a Boeing 747. The leading mainstream hypothesis today is the RNA world, the idea that RNA molecules, which can both store information and catalyze chemical reactions, came before DNA and proteins. It is an elegant idea, but no one has demonstrated how RNA itself could arise spontaneously from prebiotic chemistry. The problem of chirality, the fact that life uses only left-handed amino acids and right-handed sugars from a 50-50 mixture, remains unexplained. Even Francis Crick, co-discoverer of DNA and committed atheist, acknowledged the difficulty. He wrote, "An honest man armed with all the knowledge available to us now could only state that in some sense the origin of life appears at the moment to be almost a miracle. But here is the context that is usually left out. Crick was not arguing for God. His solution was directed panspermia, the idea that life was seeded on Earth by an alien civilization. Which only pushes the problem back one step. Someone still had to write the first code. The mystery deepens when you look at the fossil record. About 538 million years ago, something extraordinary happened. In a geological instant, roughly 10 to 40 million years, over 30 major animal body plans appeared. Eyes, nervous systems, exoskeletons, limbs. Before this, life on Earth was mostly single-celled organisms and simple, soft-bodied creatures. This is the Cambrian explosion, and it is a genuine puzzle, not a secret hidden by mainstream science. It is discussed openly in paleontology journals. The debate is whether 10 to 40 million years is sufficient for standard evolutionary mechanisms to produce that much innovation. Mainstream paleontologists say yes. The explosion is partly an artifact of the fossil record, since hard shells preserve better than soft bodies. But some scientists argue the pace is genuinely difficult to explain. This is where the debate gets heated. In 1996, biochemist Michael Behe published Darwin's Black Box. His argument, some biological systems are irreducibly complex. Take the bacterial flagellum, a tiny rotary motor with about 40 protein components that spins at up to 100,000 rpm. Remove any single component and it stops working. Behe argued systems like this could not have evolved gradually. It was a powerful argument, and it was challenged just as powerfully. Cell biologist Kenneth Miller, a Catholic Christian who fully accepts evolution, pointed to the type III secretion system, a molecular needle that bacteria use to inject toxins. It shares multiple components with the flagellum but serves a completely different purpose. The parts were not useless without the whole, they were doing something else. In 2005, this argument was examined in a federal courtroom. Kitzmiller versus Dover. After 6 weeks of testimony, the judge ruled that intelligent design is not science. Meanwhile, Douglas Axe published a peer-reviewed study estimating the probability of a functional protein at 1 in 10 to the 77th power. Mainstream biologists dispute the calculation, arguing evolution does not roll dice on every protein from scratch. It builds on what already works. And Stuart Kaufman, a mainstream theoretical biologist, proposed self-organization, the idea that complex systems can spontaneously generate order without external direction. Now here is where it gets personal. Antony Flew was, for 50 years, one of the world's most prominent atheist philosophers. He spent his career arguing there is no God. Then in 2004, Flew announced he had become a deist. Not a Christian, not a Muslim, a deist. His reason, DNA. He wrote, "What I think the DNA material has done is that it has shown, by the almost unbelievable complexity of the arrangements which are needed to produce life, that intelligence must have been involved." It was controversial. Some argued Flew was elderly and had been influenced by ID advocates. That context matters, but Flew maintained his position until his death. On the other side, Francis Collins led the Human Genome Project, the effort that first sequenced the entire human DNA, 3.1 billion base pairs. Collins is an evangelical Christian who fully accepts Darwinian evolution. He explicitly rejects intelligent design as science. He founded Biologos, promoting what he calls theistic evolution, the belief that God works through natural processes, including evolution. Collins wrote, "The God of the Bible is also the God of the genome. He can be worshipped in the cathedral or in the laboratory." Collins shows that accepting the science does not require abandoning faith, and that holding faith does not require rejecting the science. So where does this leave us? Let us be direct. DNA contains complex, specified information, that is mainstream. The origin of life is genuinely unsolved, also mainstream. Intelligent design as a scientific theory was examined in court and rejected. Behe's irreducible complexity has been challenged. Axe's numbers are disputed. These are facts. But the underlying question remains, where did the information come from? Saying evolution does not answer the question for the first self-replicating molecule, because evolution requires replication to begin. Saying God does not explain the mechanism, and saying we do not know yet is honest, but it does not make the question go away. The God of the gaps criticism is legitimate, but the information question might be different. It is not just a gap in our knowledge. It is a question about the nature of information itself. Does information require a mind, or can it emerge from mindless processes? Here is what the biology tells us. Life is built on information. That information is staggeringly complex. The origin of that information remains one of the deepest unsolved problems in science. Brilliant people on every side, atheists, deists, Christians, agnostics, have looked at the same evidence and reached different conclusions. Crick saw a miracle and proposed aliens. Flew saw a miracle and proposed a creator. Collins saw a miracle and worshipped the God who works through natural law. Kaufman saw emergence and proposed self-organization. The evidence does not force a conclusion, but it does force a question. And that question, where does information come from, leads us somewhere unexpected, because the deepest information system in the universe might not be DNA, it might be mathematics itself. That is next time.